Arsenal's 2-0 victory against Leicester on Saturday afternoon poses one massive questions for Arsenal fans worldwide. Do we even need Alexander Isak after we have discovered Super number 9 Mikel Merino? This is a match review podcast of Arsenal 2, Leicester 0. Let's get into it. Yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of Arsenal Unfiltered, your 3 times a week dose of Arsenal coverage with me, your host Mark. This, as you heard at the top, is a match review podcast of Arsenal 2, Leicester 0, and we will be answering the question today, can Mikel Merino genuinely be our number 9 for the rest of the season? We joked about it in the intro, but it's a genuine question we need to talk about. We will be talking about that, the general performance, Nwaneri being a superstar, the impact of one substitution, and the player that we took off in that substitution, who I really think is going to have a very tough time resurrecting his Arsenal career. Before I get into it, I really hope wherever you are, you and your family are well. And reach out if you are not. Everyone in the Arsenal community should be supporting each other. And I really hope you have people to lean on. And if not, find us on Blue Sky and reach out. Okay, let's do it, shall we? It was an interesting game yesterday, one that was filled with, I think, jeopardy for Arsenal, really. We're playing a relegation-threatened team. We are, it's a game we should absolutely win, and we had challenges against Leicester at the Emirates earlier in the season. You know, we had to wait till a very late kind of Trossard deflected shot from a corner to take the lead again, and we ended up winning 4-2. That probably flattered Leicester on the day, but it was very close to drop points for Arsenal at the Emirates, and it was close to drop points again here at the King Power. I think it's just important to set some context about this game, and it's something we all know, but I think Harvey Downs on Blue Sky, harveydowns92.bsky.social, sums it up incredibly well. So I'm going to quickly read you his post, details of his post, I mean. This is the first game we've started since the final game of the 2020-21 season without at least one of Saka, Havertz, Martinelli or Gabriel Jesus. That's 138 games. That is quite incredible, isn't it? One, it speaks to the availability of players like Saka and Havertz and how good they've been whilst they've been in the first team and at the club. And it speaks to how precarious our scenario is right now. Those 4 players are Arsenal's attack, really. We thought it was going to be, when Arteta was building this team, we thought it was going to be Jesus and Martinelli, Saka, and we did have that for, a season and a half or so until Jesus got injured. And obviously Havertz has since come in and taken that number 9 spot. But again, that is the front 3 players and then probably in the next guy up. So this was going to look different. There was no way of getting around the fact that yesterday's game was going to be a struggle offensively. And I think it's important that we recognise that, I guess, because we did see familiar patterns, but almost in a sort of, more acceptable way. If I'm zooming out on the game as a whole, I thought the second half was far better than the first from an Arsenal point of view. And the first was very similar to things we've seen all season long. A low block against us. A team who are kind of fighting for their lives, playing this as if it was their cup final and really, producing a stellar performance. Everyone likes to show up against Arsenal. And us not having enough threat in behind. I think that, you could sum up a lot of our first halves this year in that way. A low block, not much threat in behind from Arsenal, and a team who've shown up and were creating chances on the counter-attack. They absolutely were. I don't think we managed them particularly well in the first half in terms of boxing them in, keeping them in their own half. And it was a little bit too easy to get through us, I think, when they did get the ball back. We obviously had the lion's share of possession, but we weren't really controlling the spaces with our counter-press well enough. And they had big chances early on. I think that's where I want to start. Leicester actually performed really well yesterday, and as salty as Ruud van Nistelrooy's comments were, I think he probably did have a point that they had a good game. They definitely didn't deserve a point or a win, So I don't know where he's really getting that from, but I guess he has to say that as the opposition manager, to be fair. But yeah, they had a good performance, and especially players like Wilfred and Ndidi, and I thought Christensen did okay against Nwaneri, although, Nwaneri was really good yesterday. We will come on to him. Hermansen was good with the ball at his feet as well. I thought they did well. And we'll talk about some of the chances. What were we trying to do in the first half? Well, there was a very clear pattern of Declan Rice running in behind. That seemed to be the way we were trying to score, wasn't it? Ødegaard and Nwaneri were kind of out on the right, and they were the ones supplying these balls in either to Declan Rice or to Leandro Trossard. And we had a couple of moments where we'd put a cross in or put a long pass in, and Declan had one where he didn't really connect with the header. And I'm going to say this now, this is kind of a wider piece of analysis on Declan's timing of his runs. He needs to just be a step back, doesn't he? Because the amount of times he is trying to head the ball whilst facing the right touchline is incredible. If he was one step more delayed, he would be coming on to that a little bit more. And yes, he'd still have to shape his body to the right, but he's going in too early, like half a second too early, to be fair. Just needs to slow that down a little bit. He's making the headers very, very difficult for himself. So if that's something he wants to do, and that's something Mikel Arteta wants him to do, he really needs to slow down that run and just take half a second more. So he's coming onto it a bit more. And rather than facing the right touchline, he's just kind of angled at it. So that's something to say. There was a couple of those. There was a couple for Trossard. One where he completely air-kicked it and ended up back-heeling it as a clearance, which I thought was quite funny. But they weren't coming off. And at the same time, Leicester were threatening. They had the Ndidi volley very early on, and at about 40 minutes, they had I think it was another Ndidi chance, to be fair, that kind of skipped past the post. So we were really not hanging on, but there was threat. There was threat both ways, and there wasn't enough threat from Arsenal, and there was too much threat from Leicester. When you look at the respective teams, I think we really, really must have had some big change at half-time. I think Arteta probably got into them, and Arteta earned his money this day because he got a substitution exactly right in the second half, and I think we came out in the second half really far better. There was, however, still one scare in the second half, and that came from Thomas Partey giving the ball away, him not being able to recover well enough, looked really quite slow, and Ayew just streaked away from him and provided a brilliant cross across David Raya's goal. It's a goal 9 times out of 10, that is. A goal 9 times out of 10. Miles Lewis-Skelly with an excellent intervention. Could easily be an own goal. The way he's facing directly at his goal within the width of the 6-yard box, and he has to kind of flick it away. He knows where his man is over his right shoulder. It's a great interception and great defending. And at that point, it was still 0-0. So this game could have gone very, very differently. We know game state really matters. If Leicester go 1-up, that crowd gets even rowdier than they were. They had protests around the sporting director, etc. So they had a lot of energy in that crowd yesterday, and I think the protests carried on after the game. So there was a lot of energy in the crowd, and if they'd gone 1-0 up, that would have been very difficult for us, very difficult to recover. So fantastic from MLS. And that it didn't end the Leicester threat, but that was the last major moment. And I want to come on to talk about a player for Arsenal now, Ethan Nwaneri. I mean, this was an incredible game from Ethan Nwaneri, and he turned the tide. I mean, before that chance that MLS had to squeeze outside the post, he had the chance where he hit the bar, and this is the kind of moment where I was like, okay, we've come out far better in this second half. Far better. Because there was a clearance from Miles Lewis-Skelly, which looked for the life of it like it was going to a Leicester player, and they would counter on us. But Declan Rice, he really stepped up his game in the second half. He jumps in, wins it with a fantastic recovery, and it's a quick pass to Thomas Partey, who pings it forward, straight pass to Ødegaard, and Ødegaard straight pass to Nwaneri. And we, before Nwaneri even does what he does, that was much better from Arsenal, because we had a pattern, and we have often got a pattern against low blocks of being too slow in those scenarios. There is no team in the Premier League or the Champions League that are organised 100% of the time. None. And every team has to make professional fouls to deal with that sort of scenario. But if if you are the team who have just nicked the ball back, Leicester were trying to create an attack there. They were slightly higher up the pitch. They weren't set in their rest defence shape. If you're a team that's playing against that low block, you have to take advantage of those moments. We don't do it enough. And immediately, those two just straight passes forward, they covered so much yardage, probably about 40, 50 yards between those two passes, and got Ethan Nwaneri one-on-one. And there wasn't a low block around him. He wasn't surrounded by loads of Leicester players. There weren't loads of Leicester players in his way. And, that's what we need to do a little bit more of. And I was very, very glad to see that when we came out in the second half, because there'd been too much in the first half of slowing the ball down. And look, you're not going to get an opportunity to play fast every single time you turn the ball over. But I'd like to see us do it a little bit more. In this scenario, we got it right. Two of our best passers of the ball, Thomas Partey and Martin Odegaard, involved. Just a quick pass. And Ethan Nwaneri is in. He obviously cuts inside and unleashes his kind of trademark shot now. And it just skims the top of the bar and goes over. A great moment, because that felt like we were starting to turn the game. And again, we had another one for Nwaneri when he hit the post. And it was a similar scenario. Odegaard goes deep to help out a deep throw in, and he just kind of hoofs it forward. This time Mikel Merino's on, and Merino is the one who wins the second ball. He comes flying in from kind of a high position to a low position to take that ball down. It's a fantastic touch. It was part of what we were missing without Kai Havertz. We didn't really have that option, and he provided it in that moment, and he does a fantastic job of just taking that ball down. He gives it to Rice. Rice this time runs with the ball, but again runs just straight at the defence, doesn't wait. And again, we're taking advantage of the fact that they weren't set, they weren't in their rest defence, and they were having to make recovery runs. Rice obviously then just gives it to Ethan. This time he goes on his right foot, which I think is great. It's great that he can go both ways. There is a very slight touch from Hermansen, and it's flicked onto the post. And again, Ethan Nwaneri just presenting all the danger that we had. Now, I'm not going to talk about Sterling yet. I'm going to talk about Sterling in the second half, but when you compare their two performances, it's night and day. In fact, I'm going to quickly bring up some stats about Ethan Nwaneri. He had 16 duels on the day. He won 13 of them. An incredible rate. 11 out of 14 ground duels won, 7 out of 8 successful dribbles. Also won 3 tackles. Kind of like that. Not what we're here having him for, but, really, really good. Ethan did a fantastic job all game. He had 4 total shots, 2 of those on target. Just so impressed by him. He had the most touches in the opposition box of any Arsenal player. Just a really, really pleasing performance from a 17-year-old. 17. And he's stepping up in the Premier League and doing what he's doing. We are going to need this kid. If there's any takeaway from yesterday's performance, is whatever we decide to do, whether you think we should continue and persevere with Sterling on the left wing, whether you think we should be getting Merino in the 9 position now after yesterday's performance, whatever that looks like, Ethan Nwaneri is going to need to play a lot of minutes, and he is going to need to continue with the form that he's got. There was one moment in the first half as well. I'm talking about the chances he made and these shots that cannoned off the woodwork. There was one moment that really impressed me, where he takes the ball down on the halfway line and Leicester players go flying in at him. For all the life of it, it looks like he should lose the ball. And his low centre of gravity just helps him kind of not get knocked off the ball, duck and weave, keeps battling, gets through kind of 3 players, almost like ghosts past them, and keeps the ball and plays a pass. And I just thought, immediately, you look like Bukayo Saka right now. That is the player you look like. I'm not saying he's as good, but he is in that mould. He's in that style, and it's just terrific to have another player coming through. I thought he was the best player on the park, even with Merino's stunning performance as well. I thought he was comfortably the best player on the park. And I just love, I've said this before on the podcast, and I think it's something we need a lot more of, even from Bukayo Saka, I'm going to say. We need more of this from Bukayo Saka, is that Ethan, when he gets the ball, he doesn't mess around. He picks the ball up and he knows exactly what he's going to do, whether he's going inside or outside of his fullback, whether he's playing a pass, whatever. He just does it. And sometimes, very rarely it doesn't come off. But it doesn't discourage him, and he just gets back up and gets going. Okay, let's talk about Mikel Merino as well, because Ethan did a fantastic job, but Mikel Merino was the player who won us this game, and I think there was some key moments that meant he was able to do this. First of all, when he came on, I think it was around the 69th minute, we had been kind of getting somewhere. We'd been playing slightly better. We'd obviously created that first Ethan chance. He was then involved in the second Ethan chance. But I felt like as soon as he came on, Leicester looked a little bit more wary. They did. And I actually don't necessarily think it was the fact that Merino came on and it was Mikel Merino making them more wary. I think it was Leandro Trossard being on the left. Because all of a sudden, there was a player that they knew had threat on the left. And again, I'm going to come on to Raheem Sterling in part 2. I don't want to get too negative too early. So Trossard is out on the left and suddenly there's a threat. And all game, we'd seen a lot of Leicester players really basically across the width of that 6-yard box when we were in the final phase of possession. Just clogging that up, making sure we can't get there, making sure we can't get bodies in, can't get shots off. And they were able to do that because I think they didn't feel there was any threat off our left. Miles Lewis-Skelly, fantastic player. Absolutely love Miles Lewis-Skelly, but he isn't, he doesn't maraud forward down that left channel. He kind of comes into midfield and does more of a Zinchenko role. And Raheem Sterling wasn't offering threat. So the moment we put Trossard out there, and then we reinforced him with Calafiori, there was a left-hand threat from Arsenal, which meant that Leicester couldn't just kind of crowd the middle of the penalty box and go one-on-one with Nwaneri. They had to spread themselves a little bit more. And all of a sudden, first of all, Mikel Merino's movement was very good for the first goal, but all of a sudden he was finding space. And you watch that goal back, I'm telling you, if that's the first half and Leandro Trossard's in that position, making the exact same movement, that right back is just squeezing onto him and he doesn't get a jump, let alone a shot. It's the presence of Leandro Trossard and the idea that there is a threat now behind them, behind the right back, that he's thinking, I've got to do something here, which gives Mikel Merino that chance. And when the ball is recycled, obviously Rice gets it, recycles it out wide to Nwaneri and Timber, I should say. That moment where Mikel Merino peels off the centre-back, finds the space in between the centre-back and the full-back, that is completely caused by the fact there is a left-sided threat all of a sudden. They've got something to think about. It's a great header, it's a great piece of movement, but let's not forget that's the reason, because there was more players with threat on the pitch down both sides. So, look, Mikel Merino, he picks up a great position and really, really, really pleased. Obviously, as well, the one thing it does also bring, which I should probably give Mikel Merino credit for, is his size. Leandro Trossard is probably a Premier League centre-back's dream, because although he is very tricky and he's very good and he's a great finisher, if you're a big lumpy centre-back, you're looking at him and going, I'm going to kick this kid up in the air. And they did do that to him a fair bit. He took a couple of nasty tackles from behind, and I think he got a couple of Leicester players booked from those tackles. But they were fine with that. They were always going to make him suffer. And you can't do that to Kai Havertz because he's a big, big guy. You also can't do it to Mikel Merino because he's a big guy. He'll compete. And I think, again, immediately, so, let's take that Nwaneri, the second chance. When Merino drops deep to take the ball down, I think a centre-back is running through Leandro Trossard at that point, thinking, I'm not allowing you to have this second ball. Suddenly, because Mikel Merino's on, they're thinking, can I even get to this ball? This is a big guy, he's competitive, I'm not sure I can beat him. So he does fantastically well. And obviously, for the final goal, again, it's a similar sort of scenario where Leicester are pushing up the pitch. They are not set in their rest defence. And Ødegaard does brilliantly, releases a quick pass. Calafiori drives with it, releases another pass. And we cover ground quickly. Rather than covering ground slowly, we cover ground quickly. Whether that's with a driving run or a straightforward ball, that's what we need to do a little bit more of. When these low blocks come out a little bit and we get, we get a chance to get in behind, the run is not enough. There has to be something from the kind of midfielders, the deep midfielders and the defenders, to be fair, that says a ball has to go at this point. Whether it's riskier than the pass just out to the fullback or not, a ball has to go. Ødegaard delivers that ball. Calafiori obviously delivers that ball as well out to Trossard. Again, Trossard, he'd had a poor game. up until this point, I thought. Not impressing at all, not imposing himself in the centre forward role. But like I say, he got out left and suddenly there was more threat. He wasn't being kind of fouled as much, and it's a great cross. And this is what Leandro Trossard gives you, I think. He has real quality. He has real quality. So when he gets a moment, even in a bad game, when he gets a moment, he can produce a cross like that. Mikel Merino, again, fantastic movement. Real kind of poacher's movement in the sense that he's watching the defence run, like tear back to try and get into position. Again, I've said it a million times, I'm going to say it again. They weren't in a good rest defence shape, so they're having to make recovery runs, and that allowed Mikel Merino to kind of watch those recovery runs and watch where the back four were going to and just go, well, I'm just going to peel off here. And that's exactly what he does. He peels off behind them, times his run very well. He said, Mikel Arteta, said about his great timing. This was a perfect example of that. Times it brilliantly. It's a fantastic first-time finish off a fantastic cross. And suddenly a game that could have been really bad turned into a great win. And suddenly we felt like there was kind of attacking hope again. No Kai Havertz, no Gabriel Jesus. Who cares? We've got Mikel Merino. And on a serious note, in part 2, that is what I'm going to discuss. I'm going to take a short break, but I'm going to discuss Raheem Sterling when we get back. I'm going to discuss, can Mikel Merino actually fulfill that role? And then I'm also going to go through my player ratings for the game and just discuss some of those, because I think there's some interesting performances in this match. Hello everyone, thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you're like me, you finished watching an Arsenal game and you're already looking for the next bit of Arsenal coverage you can find. If that sounds like you, follow or subscribe to Arsenal Unfiltered on your podcast app of choice right now to make sure you don't miss a single episode from me. I'm here 3 times a week, reviewing matches and covering Arsenal news, and I'm so excited to have you all here as well. Thank you very much. Hello and welcome back. This is part 2 of Arsenal 2, Leicester 0, the match review podcast by Arsenal Unfiltered. We are answering the question right now, can Mikel Merino play number 9 for Arsenal for the rest of the year? I think it's a really interesting question. I think let's first talk about what we will do when Bukayo Saka and Gabriel Martinelli come back, because at that point we will have Nwaneri, Trossard, Saka, Martinelli and Sterling. Let's kind of discount Sterling, and I'll come on to why in a moment. But you can see a front three there of Saka, Trossard, Martinelli. You can also then see Nwaneri coming in and rotating for some of those guys, and a way we can rotate those 4 around with Sterling coming in and picking up some junk minutes. At that point, do we need Mikel Merino? I think that's question number 1. Well, for me, we probably still do need him, because there are going to be games where actually we need the long ball. we brought Kai Havertz for that, and I think Kai Havertz does a fantastic job. Even Gabriel Jesus does a fantastic job with the long ball, to be fair to him. Can Trossard do that? I think, in the last part we just spoke about, actually, he does miss that from his game when he's playing up front, and he's probably better out wide. So, maybe we don't make that change to bring Trossard into the middle and he carries on fighting with Gabriel Martinelli off the left wing, and that's a competition we keep going. We also have Saka and Nwaneri competing, and I think they'll be sharing minutes on the right wing. So I think there will be a need for another player at number 9, whether it's to share the minutes with Trossard or to do the role instead of Trossard when there is when there's a tactical need for it. So yeah, I think we will need someone. Will it be Mikel Merino? Well, he's made his case right now, hasn't he? He's not getting much of a look in the midfield, is he? Declan Rice seems to have that left 8 position on lock, and he, for as much as I criticised his headers in the first half of this podcast, I do think it looks like he's really working on that game. He's working on the high recoveries and creating high turnovers. He's working on ball recovery, and he's working on getting into the box and providing more threat. He is a real pro, and I think he's kind of accepted, okay, I'm not going to play 6 here. I'm going to play left 8, and he's doing a fantastic job of building his repertoire in that position. So Mikel Merino isn't getting much of a look in to start there. Could he start at number 9 for Arsenal? I think there's 2 things. One, I like the idea of having a big guy up there, just like we like it with Kai Havertz, and I think he's got the necessary skills. I think he's got the necessary timing, and he's got that kind of instinct that we saw a lot yesterday to peel off defenders, to get in the right position in the box, to find the space. And we have players in Ødegaard, in Nwaneri, in Saka when he's back, that can pick those balls out. So we absolutely should be looking to exploit his skills there. Whether that's starting, I don't know. And I think that's probably my second point, is yes, he had a great game yesterday, but was it against tired legs? It of course was. Leicester had put in a lot of work, and I think that's probably the thing we just need to see. Could he do this from the start? I mean, if he plays against West Ham and does a great job, I think you give him the run in the Champions League games and in the Chelsea and Manchester United game. I just don't know whether he could do this at the start against fresh legs. Would it be a different story? Would he be a little bit not technically gifted enough, I guess would be my way of saying it? And would you need Trossard's ability on the ball in there to build up and do all of those things? I don't know. It's a really tough question to answer. What he absolutely does have is those kind of instinctive poachery skills, and he has the size. Whether he can do the full package for 90 minutes or even 70 minutes, I don't know. But I was really pleased to see him do that yesterday. And one thing that's nice, I think, as well, whether he can do it from the start or not, okay, that's a question that's still to be answered. What was 100% answered yesterday is we have an ability to power up from the bench. And we were looking around at I certainly was looking at the bench yesterday going, there's only Nathan Butler Oyedeji on there in an attacking sense. That, the kid might be amazing. We've seen him play very, very little in the Champions League versus Girona. He might be very, very good and might make the step up, but we've not heard too much about him. He's certainly not come through at the rate Ethan and Miles have. So, there was very little there to help us go in. If that one of those Leicester chances had gone in, there was very little to help us go and win the game. From a 1-0 down position, or if it had gone on even longer. Mikel Merino came in and provided that. So I'm suddenly, even if we do continue to start with Trossard at 9 and Sterling off the left and Nwaneri off the right, I'm suddenly a little bit more confident that we will be able to power up with Merino, and he can play that position. The question is, can he play it from the start? We mentioned in there Raheem Sterling. Let's get into it. Oh, this was a bad game, wasn't it? This was no, it wasn't a bad game. It was a terrible game for Raheem Sterling, and I think we're being really kind. I don't know if this is fair. Maybe it's just me that thinks this, but I think we're being really kind when we say Raheem Sterling's confidence has gone. Joe Cole was on the comms in the UK, and he was talking this is a player whose confidence is gone. He needs a goal. I think he said the words, he needs one to go off his backside. Now, that's what you usually say about a player that's contributing generally but can't score. And that's what they said about Kai Havertz when Kai first came into the team. He needs someone to go in off his backside. He just needs anything. We gave him a penalty, to be fair, and that pushed him forward. And he kicked on from there. Raheem Sterling has been given his charity penalty, and he missed it against Girona. So the guys clearly recognise that he's having a bad time at Arsenal. I thought yesterday's performance, you can't put that down to confidence. You can't. There was a severe lack of quality. And I don't know if the Raheem Sterling of old was, he looked quality because he was just so quick and so explosive. And now that's gone. He just isn't quality anymore. Or is it a case of he has played in some really high quality teams and actually we're asking him to take a prominent role, not just be a finisher, but be more than the guy who just gets in on the back post, that's what he was at Manchester City. And he was world class at that. World class at that job. Had one of the best individual seasons, I think it was calendar years actually, at Manchester City that the Premier League has seen. And I wonder if it's just a case of we're asking him to do a lot more now, and he doesn't have it, and he never had it. I don't know. But one thing I certainly think yesterday was not just a confidence problem. Let's have a look at some of his stats. He had 5 ground duels, and he won a grand total of 0 of them. 0% of his ground duels won. He had 0 successful dribbles. He only really attempted 2, I think. That's incredible. He won 1 aerial duel out of 1, so fair play to him on that. But he just did not contribute. And I'm going to try and find his his passing stats as well, because he was really, really poor on the ball, I thought, yesterday. 19 out of 24 accurate passes, an expected assists of 0.06. Wow, that's bad. And didn't make an accurate cross in the game. No passes into the final third. I mean, that's really poor. I'm sorry, it's so bad. And every time the ball went to him, it felt like he gave it away, or if he didn't give it away, he slowed the game down incredible amounts. And I spoke earlier about, as soon as Trossard was out left, there was a threat, and that gave Merino space. This is why, because Raheem Sterling wasn't a threat in the first half, so they were just going, we'll leave him there. That's fine. We don't care about him. We're just going to squeeze the middle. As soon as Trossard was out there, they suddenly recognised it was a threat, and it gave a bit of room. I really felt like that substitution, I think I said it earlier in the pod, the game flipped on a substitution. And yes, Merino was very good, and yes, the tactical switches made a big difference, and Mikel Arteta deserves a lot of credit for that substitution, a lot of credit. But at the crux of it, it was like going from playing with 10 men to playing with 11 men. It was like we added a functional player where there wasn't one. And that might be very, very harsh, but that is genuinely how I feel. And suddenly it felt like we had threat down both flanks rather than just the right. And the balance of the game completely shifted. Now, we can say a lot about, and I have already on this podcast, about what Merino was doing, what Trossard on the left was doing, but ultimately, you can't have a passenger in the Premier League anymore. Because the moment you have a passenger, it means you can't really create overloads. It means you can't spread defences, because they're just going to say to that player, go on then, have that space. We're not gonna worry about you. We don't see you as a threat. Have that space. Crack on. We're gonna make the centre of the pitch, where most goals are scored, really, really difficult to play in. And that's what Leicester did yesterday. The moment we took Sterling off, whether it was Merino or Nathan Butler or Deji or anyone, we would have gone from having 10 men to 11. It's really harsh analysis, but I think it is that simple. Leicester don't see him as a threat. I don't think any Premier League opposition will see him as a threat. And whilst we have to continue playing him, we were going to have a real issue with low blocks and getting space in the middle, because they don't need to go out wide to deal with him. They don't. That is the crux of it. And Declan Rice is trying to find runs and space. If Raheem Sterling's not giving him that space on that left-hand channel, how's he going to score from there? If that's how we're going to play going forward, how are we going to create threat in those scenarios if the left winger isn't a threat to them? I think it's a real issue, and I do think that Raheem Sterling, maybe a lack of threat, lack of quality, is a real case for saying we need Trossard out on the left, and whether Mikel Merino can do it for 90 minutes up front, we are going to have to find that out, because we need to see, is there a way we can play without him and just keep bringing him on for junk minutes for Nwaneri and Trossard to keep those guys fresh. I think that's really important. Let's do player ratings, and then we're going to talk about the West Ham game very, very, very quickly, just because it's nice that we've got a week off again. I think that's going to be sort of really, really important for us, and we've played well against West Ham already this year, so hopefully we have a good time. So I posted the player ratings that I did on Blue Sky. You can follow me on Blue Sky, arsenal-unfiltered.bsky.social. 5 in these rankings is completely average performance. So David Raya, Saliba and Gabriel were the players. Oh, and Trossard I gave a 5 to. So yeah, let's go through it in order. Raya 5, didn't really have too much to do. Made a good save from the Ndidi volley, but not too much for him to do. And, I don't think he was bad in any way. Passed the ball quite well. Did that left centre-back thing a lot. Timber, he got a 6 for me. I thought he was a threat moving forward and did some good work defensively. Got kicked a little bit for at the start of the first half as well, and dealt with that really well. Saliba and Gabriel both get 5s, just kind of average performances from them. And MLS I gave a 6 to. Really, really important intervention for the Leicester chance, but didn't offer too much going forward. Partey also a 6. Terrible moment when he gave the ball away. Terrible moment. However, I thought he played some nice passes going forward. And yeah, for me, I think he made 7 ball recoveries as well. So he had an okay game. He actually posted on Instagram when I'm not at my best, my team step up, and I thought, oh, that's interesting that he felt he was below par yesterday. I thought he was slightly above par, slightly above average. Not his best game. He can play much, much better than that, but he played some nice passes. Ødegaard and Rice, I think, are sneakily two of our best performances yesterday. Some very good passes from Martin Ødegaard, some real fantastic running and ball recovery from Declan Rice, and of course they're both involved in those Nwaneri chances, and Ødegaard is involved in the Mikel Merino second goal with the work he does in kind of our third, kind of running across our box and playing a clever ball. So I thought sneakily those guys were good. Sterling I gave a 2 to. I mean, I've already gone through that. A really bad game. Trossard a 5. I thought he was very, very poor in the central striker role, but as soon as he went out left, obviously that cross gives him lots of credit from me. Nwaneri we've discussed, he got an 8 from me. He is our man of the match. Another player who got an 8 is Merino. The man of the match could have gone to either of those guys, right? But I think because Nwaneri was doing it over 90 minutes, I wonder if that was his first 90 minutes for Arsenal, actually. Might have been. He was doing it over 90 minutes. He was constant threat. He got an assist. I thought he was brilliant. So he just edges Merino, but it could have gone either way. Calafiori gets a 6 from me. He came on and he looked threatening going forward. And this is one I want to just talk about. We love Miles Lewis-Skelly. I think he's a really, really good player. But I do wonder if during this period where we've got not much threat in the final third in terms of we're missing some of our really, really key players, is it worth having more offensive fullbacks on? I like the world where we play Ben White when he's fit and Calafiori during this period because they're just going to be a little bit more offensively minded than Timber and Miles Lewis-Skelly. So I think that could be a really good option. And Kieran Tierney I gave a 5 to because he barely had any time on the pitch. Yeah, so a good result. Not without concern in the first half performance and how we managed that low block, but credit to Mikel Arteta. I think he improved the team at half time, and I think he improved the team with his changes. And I think the major question is can we get Mikel Merino in this starting lineup so we don't have to play Raheem Sterling? Then we can see Trossard in his best position. We can see Nwaneri with a target and someone to hit. I think there's a chance if we can get Merino to work for 90 minutes up front, we can survive this period. Or we can at least do okay until Saka and Martinelli are back. So let's see. Let's see what goes on. It was an enjoyable game in the end yesterday. We have West Ham coming up. I can't tell you how much I think this period of games will be valuable. Because we have a break. We have 7 days until the West Ham game. And then I think we have a midweek game. And then it's a weekend off before we go into the Champions League. So it's not a high density of game. The fact that we're going Saturday to Saturday is mad to me. I'm going to have to think of a podcast to do midweek. I'm really, really pleased. We've had 10 days off. We've played this game. We're going to have another 7 days off and play another game against two teams who, with all due respect, shouldn't, although Leicester did pose us a problem yesterday, they shouldn't, be the most taxing games of our year. So I'm really pleased. Hopefully it allows the boys to get some sharpness back in the legs and recover from yesterday's effort. It's always nice going first, I think, on a Premier League weekend because you can sit back and watch the rest of the football without any stress. And of course, we had some good results for us yesterday. Newcastle lost, Nottingham Forest lost, Villa lost. So kind of the teams looking behind us are not really... Villa drew. They're not really looking like they're going to try and hunt us down or keep pace with us. So hopefully Wolves do us a favour later today. I'm going to leave it there. Looking forward to the West Ham game. I will preview the West Ham game sort of Thursday, Friday next week. And we'll have an episode of the Arsenal Roundup sort of Tuesday, Wednesday, depending on the schedule. And of course, the West Ham game I'll cover on Sunday afternoon Sunday morning probably, or maybe Saturday afternoon on the weekend. Hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you like this episode, please do consider giving me a follow or leaving a review wherever you get your podcasts. It really, really helps the podcast out. And all that's left to say is thank you very much for following. Thank you for listening. And I will speak to you very, very soon.